Ever stop and wonder what your own thoughts sound like without a constant digital feed whispering in your ear? Well, today we're exploring a pretty fascinating idea that gets right to the heart of that question. We're going to dive into something called the algorithmic silence experiment.
You know this feeling, right? You open up an app and boom, there it is. A little suggestion. You might like this.
And it just keeps going. It's like this endless chain of connections. Because you watch that one thing, you're absolutely going to love this other thing.
And then, of course, the big one, this is what's trending just for you. It's this non-stop, personalized broadcast that's always aimed directly at getting our attention. You know, this constant stream of digital chatter, this feeling that we're always being sort of guided, it actually has a name. The source material for this calls it the algorithmic hum. And it's the perfect description, isn't it? It's that subtle, ever-present background noise of suggestions and pop-ups that just shapes our entire online world.
Yeah, it's a hum that's so persistent we often don't even realize it's there anymore. You know, it's kind of like the sound of the refrigerator running in the background. It's always on, quietly influencing the whole vibe of our minds.
So that leads to a really powerful question. What if you could just turn it off? What would you even hear in the silence that's left behind?
Well, it turns out a group of researchers decided they wanted to find out. So they designed this experiment to do exactly that, to basically sever our connection to the hum on purpose, and then just sit back and see what happens.
The whole idea is remarkably simple, but wow, it's also pretty profound. For just 1 week, people would live without any algorithmic stream. So no personalized recommendations, no automated suggestions, just a complete and total absence of the hum.
Okay, so if you cut out all that external noise, what are you even listening for? Well, the researchers decided to focus on what actually changes inside our own heads when we're finally left alone with our thoughts.
They really zoomed in on 3 key areas. First, our ability to focus. Second, the decisions we make. And maybe the most fascinating one of all, the very nature of our own internal monologue.
So the very first thing they found was what the source describes as profound shifts in focus. And this suggests that without that constant pull of notifications and suggestions, our brains might actually be able to settle into these deeper, more sustained periods of concentration. It really makes you wonder how much that hum is just shattering our ability to be present.
Next up, they saw these huge shifts in decision-making. And think about that for a second. How many of our daily choices, from the article we read to the movie we watch, are just gently nudged by some algorithm? So when those invisible guide rails are taken away, do we find new things we love? Or do we just feel kind of lost?
And finally, this last one. This is a really personal one. They saw profound shifts in our internal monologue. You know, that little narrator inside our own heads. Without a constant diet of trending topics and you might like, what does that voice even talk about? It brings up a kind of a startling question. Whose thoughts are we really thinking most of the time?
So it's one thing to say, turn off the algorithm, but what does that really look like? What's the actual practical difference between living with the hum and living in this algorithmic silence?
It really boils down to this simple contrast. On one side, you're basically floating in a stream of personalized recommendations. On the other, you're in a space where you get to make your own choices and have these amazing, uninterrupted thoughts. It's really the difference between being a passenger versus being the driver of your own attention.
And this brings us to the final and maybe the most important part of this whole idea. Because it's one thing to learn about some experiment, it's a completely different thing to think about what it could mean for you.
And it's super important to remember this whole thing isn't about saying technology is bad or finding some right way to live. The goal is actually a lot simpler, and I think way more powerful. It's just about becoming aware of the hidden influence of the hum so we can all make more conscious choices about how we interact with it.
So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. If you had your own week of silence, totally free from that constant digital hum, what do you think you'd discover about your focus, your choices, and yeah, even the voice inside your own head?